Welcome to episode 10 of the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, I aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. My name is Stuart Clark. Well, welcome back to episode number 10. If you haven't realized already, I sound a little bit different. I'm just fighting off a bit of a cold, so hopefully we'll get through this and I won't sound and scare too many people. Let's get right on to the latest news. As usual, quite a bit of news happening with the Christmas season coming. Hobby Boss, their December preview includes sprue shots of their very big 1/32nd scale B-24J Liberator. This was designed in 1939 as a replacement for the Flying Fortress. It's actually larger than the Fortress. It carries a larger bomb load. So Hobby Boss is joining the big model club as where in the heck do you put these things when they're done. This is an absolutely huge kit in 1/32nd scale. Just give you an idea of what size we're talking about. It's 67 centimeters in length. The wingspan's actually over a meter. So 104.9 centimeters, 540 parts, 22 sprues, some etch parts, and does include grooved rubber tires. I know some people don't like that in the World War II aircraft or an aircraft in general. But overall, looks like if it's your thing, it looks like it's going to build up to be a very good kit. I've heard some reviewers mention the engines certainly could use a bit more work in this scale, so I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of aftermarket available for this. Also from Hobby Boss coming out is the German VK3001P test tank. This is what basically was further developed into the Tiger tank. This was produced, two of them were made in 1940 and 1941. 1/35th scale, 9 sprues, 400 parts, individual track links, some photo etch as well. So if that's your sort of thing, I'm sure you're going to like that as well. Also, Hobby Boss is released or is going to be releasing an Soviet armored train in 1/35th scale. This is the MBV-2. I've seen some other ones for the German ones before, and I know there's quite a bit of people that enjoy building these. So this one's produced in 1938 at the Kirov plant, was a self-propelled armored train, of which 2 were built. It originally mounted 76.2 millimeter guns, KT-28 guns, but eventually were replaced with the FT-34 guns used on the T-34 tanks, and that's what this is going to feature. It's scheduled for release in January 2019, so quite a nice looking kit as well. Moving on, we've got Artillery coming out with their December releases. We have the Type 82 Kubelwagen. This is actually a big scale kit, 1/9 scale. So for those people who really like the larger kits, this one's coming out. Working suspension, openable lid, highly detailed engine, lots of decal sheets, highly detailed. Looks like a couple of different versions with a canvas top. So if you're into the big scale stuff, that's definitely a possibility. Also looking at from Artillery, they've got a couple of aircraft. The 1/48 scale Tornado GR1 IDS. This was served during the Gulf War. Looks like 6 different versions on the decal sheet. Pretty detailed. Again, not much else we can say about this. It's a Tornado. For those of you who love to build it, it'll be another good option, the 1/48 scale option. Car-wise, the Alfa Romeo Giulietta, and I apologize if I'm slaughtering that name, Spider 1300. This is a little 2-seat car that was built from Alfa Romeo between 55 and 62. Developed and designed on the Sprint chassis. It adapted a 1.290 centimeter 4-cylinder longitudinal line engine capable of delivering 65 horsepower. They were able to reach a max speed of 155 kilometers an hour. Rear-wheel drive, front and rear drum brakes, and equipped with an independent wheel suspension. Looks like a nice set of highly detailed decals, a couple of different schemes. Looks like you can build a canvas cover on top of this one as well. So all in all, a nice one if you like your Alfa Romeos. Also coming out, the X-47B in 1/72nd scale. This was a demonstrator unmanned combat vehicle designed by Northrop Grumman to operate from flight decks from aircraft carriers. So there were several operational tests. They were actually tested on board the aircraft carrier George H.W. Bush and performed takeoff, landing, air refueling, etc. So again, this is equipped with a Pratt & Whitney turbofan engine. Basically, subsonic performance, 2 loading bays can provide an offensive load of over 2,000 kilograms. So again, 1/72nd scale, 26 by about 16 centimeters. Three different versions on the decal. Moving to their truck fans, the Iveco TurboStar 190-42 canvas width elevator. This is another Italian vehicle. This is being released again in December as well. Skill level 4, about 38 centimeters in length. Looks like a nice different sets of decals. The sprues look very nice. For those of you into the truck models, I'm sure you'll like this one as well. Moving on to Hasegawa's December's release. As always, a wide variety of topics and subjects here. We're going to start off with the Datsun Fairlady 240Z in the 1972 Monte Carlo Rally scheme. 1/24th scale, 112 parts. Again, not a lot of information on the Hasegawa site about this, but again, an attractive looking Datsun if you're into those older style rally cars. Moving on to a naval topic, the Japanese Navy 2 destroyer kits, the Momi and the Wataki. This is a hyper detailed waterline model kit. Both destroyers come in the box. About just under 100 parts for both, include some very nice photo etch. These destroyers were completed in 1919 and 1922. So a nice, looks like a fairly detailed build. If you're into 1/700 scale, looks like it builds up with the photo etch, including railings and things like that. You might need a set of magnifying goggles to help with this, to be perfectly honest. But looks like they're going to build up to be some nice kits, and I know the naval modelers out there will like those. Also, a limited edition F100 Super Sabre, 1/72nd scale, 69 parts. And this is actually based on a Japanese anime and manga series called Area 88. I'm sure there's people out there that know a lot more about this than I do. So this is from a particular anime TV show. Looks like a desert scheme, 69 parts. Looks like a nice looking kit. If you're a fan for that. Moving back to racing, the Nissan R91 CP in 1/24 scale. This is the 1991 All Japan Sports Prototype Car Endurance Championship Team Car number 23. A very attractive looking car in a blue and white scheme. As I said, 1/24 scale, 124 parts. Looks very nice. Moving on to more of the sci-fi fantasy stuff. Mecantro Chunk, Origin and Forest. Again, I'm sure I'm slaughtering that name. My apologies in advance. If someone wants to give me the nice pronunciation, please let me know in the comments. 1/35th scale. 2 robots, 134 parts each per robot, 90 millimeters in length, 81 millimeters in width, including some decals, some rather cute looking, I suppose we can say, robots. But you never know with these Japanese anime series. They're probably major killers or something. Okay, last week we talked about Ming Models releasing a Canadian Leopard battle tank. This week they've added on to that. They're adding an option for this. This is the sandproof canvas cover. These were used by the Canadian Forces in response to the very harsh operational environment in Afghanistan. This is very distinctive. So it protected the various components at the top of the turret and the hull from dust and large temperature difference. So very, very different looking. They've got an example here on the product page, which of course we'll have in the show notes. Contains 6 parts. So if you're building a Leopard C2 with the Dozer Blade model kit and you want it in Afghanistan, this might be something you might want to look at. AK Interactive has released a new color line of paints, quite a few, called Real Color. So if we talk about Real Color Air in particular, there's 133 colors, both World War II and modern. They've announced this. In addition, they've got a book all about real colors of World War II. They've released the book for the aircraft. They've had quite a few researchers coming up with the most accurate and they're calling the most comprehensive guide to the colors and camouflage schemes. It's over 200 pages, illustrated with several color profiles, document reprints, and dozens of black and white and color photos, including quite a few that are rare. Included is the latest information on the Luftwaffe's late war colors, which have been reproduced as scale colors on the basis of the original paint factory recipes. Apparently, there's also been unparalleled research on Soviet Air Force colors, as well as U.S. Army Air Force, U.S. Navy, and the RAF FAA. So, yeah, if you're interested in aircraft colors from World War II in particular, this looks like a very good choice from what I'm seeing. AK has been held in very high regard for their paint, particularly for airbrushing. I know a lot of people really swear by it. I haven't tried it myself. I'd love to get a sample sometime and try it. But, yeah, so apparently this Real Color series, it flows right in your airbrush. Very little thinning required. They do have their own thinner, highly compatible with other acrylic lacquer brands, etc., etc. So definitely check that out. I've put 2 links on the website with the show notes that will include both of those. Model Collect has introduced some more CAD shots of their upcoming Navy A12 Avenger 2 release. This is in 1/48 scale. The Avenger 2 was designed to be a replacement using stealth and delta wing technologies for the A6 Intruder back in a couple of decades ago. It never really came to fruition due to the weight and the high costs involved. But for Navy fans who want to have a look and do some what-ifs, it's definitely available. The CAD shots look like it's going to become a very detailed kit, full-on 2-seat cockpit, etc. Well worth a look if that's what if for the U.S. Navy is your cup of tea. And the price point for that, they're announcing $79.99 US. Polar Lights have released their long-awaited Klingon Katinka-class battlecruiser from Star Trek The Motion Picture. This is an all-new kit, all-new mold, 1/350th scale. It's going to come out to 2 feet long, basically studio scale. Includes full decal sheet, a dome base, also includes an optional resin bridge dome to capture details that traditional injected molding can't do. It is engineered for lighting, and there is an optional lighting kit that you can fully light up your battlecruiser. Polar Lights did in the spring and summer quite a series on their website when they were announcing this on how the manufacturing and that went together. So a very nice looking kit, something I wouldn't mind having if I had the room for it. But yeah, for those of you who are Star Trek fans, particularly Klingon fans, this is going to be a must-have, I think. Keeping on the theme of sci-fi movies, also Mobius is releasing a EVA pod from 2001, The Space Odyssey. Movie came out in the late 60s. This is a big 1/8 scale. They are so far doing pre-orders for this. It looks like it's going to be a very nice kit. For those of you who have the Discovery, I know a lot of positive things about that one. This one's going to be full interior. You'll be able to light it as well, and it's going to stand 10 inches tall. So if you're a fan of that, that's also going to be a must-have on your list. Last but certainly not least, on the sci-fi front, Dragons released a couple of Apollo landing craft and ships. So in this case, from the Apollo missions, I should say. So this one's the Apollo 11 lunar landing Columbian Eagle, 1/72nd scale from Dragon Models, about $54 US. Again, they are doing a pre-order. Looks like a fairly nice kit for those of you who are into the real space sort of thing. Includes both the command module, Columbia, and of course the lunar LEM, the landing craft, which was first on the moon with Neil Armstrong, the Eagle. Looks like a very nice looking detailed kit. This is actually a reissue, but they are making it available again. Includes astronauts flags and support. Other details include the docking probe assembly, heat shield, S-band antenna, radars, etc., etc. So again, another nice looking one. I like to see some of the actual real spacecraft. I know Hasegawa a few years back made one of some of the space probes that have gone now out to the other stars, or other planets, I should say. It's going to be a while till they get to the other stars. So that's all with what's new this week. Of course, we can't forget what's new and what people are talking about in the hot kit section on ScaleMates, a great scale modeling database and stash manager. Obviously, the new Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1 and 148 from Tamiya. Zvezda's Yak 130, a Russian trainer. Edwards Tempest Mark 5 and 148, the Airfix 124th Hellcat. Rise Jag Panther G2s being talked about. Not to mention the Ford GT from Tamiya. What else do we have here? All sorts of a couple of other things. Weta Workshop's Moose looks like a mech of some sorts being talked about. So yeah, not too many new things, but again, popular kits all being discussed, and it's nice to see a whole range of different topics, not just aircraft and armors, quite a few vehicles in here as well. Be nice to see a few more ships being talked about, but I'm sure that will that ebbs and flows as the hot kits come out. I'm just looking else. What else is down the list here? Obviously, Kinetic's F-16 XL2 from Kinetic. That's a nice looking one. I'd like to have that in the stash. That's the 2-seater experimental one they based on the previous release. So that's what's being talked about at scalemates.com. What's on the bench? Well, frankly, I haven't had a lot of time to work on much at all between this darn cold, as you can hear I still have, and work commitments. Haven't had a lot of bench time. Did start doing a little bit more weathering on the Tamiya Panther. As I described in my personal site at blackfire.ca, the tank decided to take a tumble, so a few small parts have been lost to the floor monster until I find it, but that's okay. I was planning to use it as a paint mule or an experiment anyway. So playing around with some of the weathering products from MIG and Vallejo and stuff like that, just playing with some of the different filters and stuff like that. Been doing quite a bit of reading on weathering. There's a lot of good resources out there for you folks to look up things like weathering from, like I say, from MIG, Vallejo, and all the other various manufacturers out there. The Hasegawa Hornet, got a gloss coat on that. It's getting ready for decals. Again, not much else working on that. And that mech, the Bandai 1144 Shy Tam with the Airfix 172nd scale gun tractor. Really, I haven't done anything to that. I did prep the base. I put a shellac coating on the base in preparation to do some weathering on that. So that's what's pretty well happening on the bench. Hopefully, in a week or two, when things calm down work-wise, and I'm feeling a little bit more healthy, I'll be able to do a bit more. Sites and tips. I found this when this link here. It's called Small Plastic Wars, and it's a little, we can almost say a one-act play as a podcast on RTE, which is the Irish National Broadcaster. Pat McGrath is a member of IPMS Ireland, and when I joined the IPMS Ireland group, I asked him, as an administrator, as I ask a lot of whenever I join a group, if it's okay, I can just have a brief mention about the podcast. I don't like to break rules, and I think it's always polite before you start advertising your wares, shall we say, on someone else's group. He mentioned this. This is a neat little amusing one-act, like I say, a one-act audio play, radio drama. It's about an hour long, and it's all about a guy named Joe. And basically, he has more to say to his 1/35th scale Sherman tank than to his wife and children, because we know men don't talk. So when the Irish economy comes tumbling down like a house of cards, Joe is at a loss to how to deal with unemployment, the constant stream bills the postman keeps delivering. His wife, seeing him moping around, suggests she should clear out the unbuilt model kits from the wardrobe. Little does she know, Joe's rediscovered long-forgotten hobby will be his perfect escape from reality. Can there be a happy ending? It's well worth having a listen. You'll have a good chuckle. There's a lot of stuff. Certainly some inside hobby jokes we can all relate to, particularly the armor modelers. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And as I said, I've got the link on the show notes. And my thanks to Pat for both letting me advertise the podcast on IPMS Ireland, but also for letting me know about this, because it's actually quite good. Makes me wonder if there's any more drama and stuff like that about scale model building. So we're going to wrap this shortened episode of the Scale Model Podcast up. As you can see, I still have got my cold. Hopefully in 2 weeks, I'll be feeling much better. I'm hoping to have 1 or 2 guests on. We were hoping to get someone on this week, but schedules happen, stuff like that. So I've got a few other things lined up. So as normal, don't forget to subscribe and let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. The podcast is currently recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Feel free to like and subscribe to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Scale Model Podcast. That's all one word. I also have extra video content on my YouTube channel, and the link is in the show notes. I've also just started a Patreon page. I've literally just set it up tonight. It's linked to the website, and I will be talking about that a bit more in future podcasts. But I'll just briefly say, the Patreon page is going to be anyone who feels like helping support the cost of hosting. At some point down the road, I'd like to get some better digital recording gear, particularly when I'm at shows and that. It makes it easier to do higher quality recordings of interviews and things like that. But as I said, I'll be talking a bit more about that later on. So that's it for this week. I appreciate your patience for the podcast coming late. I always love hearing the comments and the suggestions. So that's it for this week. My name is Stuart Clark. Thank you and be well.